So how do satirical behemoths like The Simpsons and South Park so accurately predict the future? Well, now the Babylon Bee falls in that category as well. So welcome back to Azimuth Podcast. Today we're spelling out the latest twist in competitive spelling. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is my co-host, Kimberly McNabb. Kimberly, are you ready for this?
Ready. I was born ready, Barrett, but nothing could prepare me for what the Scripps National Spelling Bee has cooked up this time. They've officially approved Womyn, with a Y, yes, with a Y, as a valid word in their competition.
Ah, yes, Womyn, spelled W-O-M-Y-N. It's not a typo. Folks, it's progress. You need to make sure that we're aware of that. Or so they say. Because apparently the English language wasn't challenging enough for third graders.
Can you imagine little Susie up there at the podium? She's sweating bullets, ready to tackle photosynthesis when the judge hits her with Womyn. Use it in a sentence. Feminists have rebranded yet another word to exclude the suffix men.
And Susie's response is W-H-A-T? What?
Why not?
But don't take our word for it. Check out how the Babylon Bee correctly predicted this.
Our next spelling bee contestant is Madison. Your word is precocious.
Can you use it in a sentence, please?
Precocious. Little know-it-alls like you are annoyingly precocious.
Precocious. P-R-E-C-O-C-I-O-U-S. Precocious.
That's correct. Lincoln, your word is woman.
Woman. Can I have the country of origin, please?
I don't, probably England or Germany or something. Woman.
Can I have the definition, please?
Why don't you ask Judge 1 that question?
Can I have the definition of woman, please?
No.
Why not? I'm allowed to ask for definitions, right?
The thing is, a woman is a woman is women.
What she's trying to say is that each person gets to define for themselves what a woman is.
So can you define it?
No.
Why? I just want to know the definition of woman.
And that makes you a hateful little bigot, Lincoln.
I don't hate anybody.
How about we just use it in a sentence? Abortion is a woman's right.
If a woman makes an accusation, we should believe all women.
Joe Biden picked a woman as a running mate.
Ketanji Brown Jackson is the first black woman on the Supreme Court.
Hillary Clinton should have been the first woman president.
UPenn swimmer Leah Thomas is a woman.
I'm a woman.
I'm not a woman. Woman.
How can you use it in all those sentences if you don't know the definition?
Listen, you intolerant little bigot, just spell the word so we can get a girl up here to win this whole thing.
The definition of woman is woman. Woman! A woman! Woman! Are you happy?
That doesn't make any sense.
It's a simple word. We all know what a woman is. Just spell woman!
Okay. Woman. W-O-M-A-N. Woman.
Wrong! It's got an X in it now for some reason. W-O-M-X-N. Now get out of here! Kenny, you're up next.
X doesn't make that sound.
Kenny, your word is Micropachycephalosaurus.
His word was woman.
Well, for those of you wondering, woman is a term some feminists use to ditch the dreaded M-E-N in woman. So, what's next? Female, spell it like male, postal service. Pfft. But, because a silent E is clearly a patriarchal plot.
Yeah, Because nothing says empowerment like making spelling bees even more of a nightmare for kids who already think chrysanthemum is the final boss of words.
It could be for me. And let's not forget the poor parents trying to help their kids prep for these bees. Johnny, today we're learning progressive spelling. Here's your flashcard for woman.
Woman, noun, a feminist spelling for the word woman. Alternative definitions include confusion, family dinner debates, and extra Scrabble points.
Well, this little girl gets it.
Hey, what is this right here?
The pelvis. It's the only bone in the body that's gender specific, which means it's different in boys and girls.
Is it?
Yes. The pelvis's job to protect the organs used for digesting and reproduction, which means throwing babies.
Oh, there it is.
That's awesome. Well, of course, the internet was all over this one. One user said, "You can't make this stuff up." Oh, but they did, and they slapped it into the spelling bee rule book for good measure.
Well, this is just another example of how out of touch these elitists are. You wonder why you lost the election, leftists. People can't relate to you when you're catering to Drag Queen Story Hour and using words like Latinx. And I have a good example of another, that crazy word. I was telling my friend and lash stylist about the story, and I asked what she thought of the word Latinx, since we're talking about spelling words. And she is straight up Mexican, okay? She inherited property in Mexico. She's never heard of it. Never heard of the word Latinx. She's like, what are you talking about? So I had to explain to her these so-called elite Ivy League professors invented it because they thought they knew about the oppression of minorities in their ivory towers. But, you know, the left, they don't know what introspection is, and they're just doubling down with the likes of this word, this version of spelling woman. And the spelling bee defended the move, saying any word in their official dictionary is fair game. So kids, buckle up. Next year, you might see words like yeet, sus, and Rizzler, but they probably have a better time with it.
Oh, my God. Please don't give them any more ideas. You know, these judges are already, Googling TikTok slang right now to make sure that's included in the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. But, that's a great point because, here we have the Hispanic Society. I think the last statistic I saw was that 80% of the Hispanic community does not know about this Latinx. I've also heard it Latinx. I've heard Latinx. There's all kinds of different ways to say it, and that might be a reason why it hasn't caught on in the Hispanic community, because you have all of these Harvard intellectuals that are saying, "Hey, look, by the way, Hispanics are oppressed, and so we're going to have to rename you." For your own protection. But still, Latino, Latina, it is a masculine, feminine language, and we're talking about Spanish here. So it's these ivory tower professors that are coming to the rescue and putting a gender neutral on it for your own good.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that'll level the playing field just by changing a couple letters. Yeah, they'll fix everything. Mm-hmm.
Well, so we saw this is absolutely ridiculous. Putting in weird spellings of common words is, one, confusing, and two, it goes into exactly the end of the Babylon Bee, where he says it's an X, and X doesn't make that sound, and so if you are spelling woman with a Y or woman with an E, how do you know if you got one right or wrong or whatever it is? I mean, so the power of language is that it's standardized, and so that is something that's super important. But to go and do this is just absolutely silly. So anyway, if you've learned something new or just want to scream into the void, make sure you hit that like button.
And don't forget to subscribe. Who knows what word Scripps will approve of next? I'm rooting for meh myself.
Yeah, meh. Well, next time, keep your dictionaries closed and your sanity even closer. Thanks so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So do you remember this?
Let's stay the course. Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. We've got to get the children connected to their parents. The children are suffering.
Well, that's Maxine Waters calling for protests against public servants, but in private areas, in restaurants and department stores and walking around. Make sure to get a crowd and drown these people out. Well, her comments led to this.
We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
Beto is way hotter than you do.
We believe survivors!
We believe survivors!
We believe survivors!
God bless you!
Let my wife through.
We believe survivors!
Forgotten you. We believe survivors! 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 Sexist, racist, anti-gay! We believe survivors! We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
Well, that was Senator Ted Cruz and his wife Heidi being accosted in a Washington, D.C. restaurant. And then also, do you remember this?
Mike, check!
Secretary Nielsen, how dare you spend your evening here eating dinner as you're complicit in the separation and deportation of over 10,000 children separated from their parents? How can you enjoy a Mexican dinner as you're deporting and imprisoning tens of thousands of people who come here seeking asylum in the United States? We call on you to end family separation and abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE!
Abolish ICE!
Shame! 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 Shame!
Shame! Shame!
And family
separation!
And family separation!
You don't eat in peace! If kids don't eat in peace, you don't eat in peace!
If kids don't eat in peace!
So that was Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christian Nielsen and her husband dining at a Mexican restaurant. And, so all of these are directly attributed to Maxine Waters calling for the disruption of people in private spaces.
Well, now people in the service industry in D.C. promised to shun certain Republican officials or employ other small acts of resistance against them to take their power back. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and my co-host is Barrett McNabb. Well, this is just what we get when we raise a bunch of people needing safe spaces.
Well, for people who vote in increases for minimum wage, they sure seem hell-bent on having less of it.
Mm-hmm. And you can't handle people who don't think like you. You know where people think differently than you about, say, abortion? Well, most of these people from all over the world that these leftists seem to want flooding the border. And, if these brats spoiled by mommy and daddy ever had to pay a tab in their life, maybe they'd understand, poor service means poor tip. Consistently bad service also means, hey, I'm not going back to that place.
Yeah, so that's kind of what these wait staff and managers and bartenders are saying, is that they're going to do exactly that. They're going, if you place your order and you are a recognized Republican, recognized conservative, you place your order at a restaurant and they're going to deliberately put orders ahead of yours in order to make sure that you suffer and they can take back some of that power. So something that might take 10 minutes to come out, your main course, is going to come out in 30 minutes because they're gonna have people go ahead of you. If you if there's a preferred seating arrangement or seating order or location in a restaurant that's ideal, they're going to make sure that you get the worst table in the restaurant. And it doesn't even matter if you already have reservations for a specific table. They're going to go ahead and say, look, that was booked, and you're in the back corner with all the lights out, next to the bus boys coming in and out with that door slamming. So some of that same thing for the for bartenders. There, you put in a drink order. And there's people that are that are next to you that haven't put anything in yet. They're going to slow roll and slow play your drink order to make sure that you just have to suffer just a little bit more. And honestly, one, it's political discrimination, but still it's childish.
It's very short-sighted. I mean, poor tips, because people tend to tip based on service, and they get bad service, they're not going to want to come back. And also, if your boss notices that you're doing this, you may get fired, because they don't want their business going down the hole with your political ideology. Like, no, I want to make money, and if you're going to chase people away, then you're fired. I can get rid of you. I may not be able to get those customers back.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kimberly, especially since in this particular article, one of the main actors of this, and when I say actors, I don't mean in a movie script, but one of the bad actors, one of the people that have said they're going to deliberately provide slow service, identified her restaurant, and she was terminated yesterday.
So now she has no power and no job.
Right, and people know who she is, so she's kind of put that out there on social media. But still, I mean, just think about it. If a restaurant, what's super important for them is to look at the color of the money and make sure it's green. That's really what it boils down to. I mean, you do have restaurants that seem to want to roll the dice. I think I recall a Virginia restaurant, or maybe it was Maryland, where Nikki Haley and her son were dining, and the owner came to their table and kicked him out of the restaurant and said, "You are not welcome here." And of course, there was calls to boycott, but then those are overshadowed or mitigated by liberals that are going to the restaurant.
Yeah, celebrating.
Yeah, so this is like hallowed ground now for discrimination. But I really think this is a very slippery slope. I mean, obviously, political ideology is not a protected class, but I really think it should be, because you really shouldn't be discriminating on race or gender or age, in job places and things like that. And you shouldn't discriminate against political affiliation either.
No, and if you only vote for people who think exactly like you, if you only friend people who think exactly like you, or even serve them, then eventually, okay, they don't think exactly like I do on this and this and this, and then you're trimming away so many people or family relatives out of holiday gatherings. Eventually, you'll be all by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this from, just in general by and by. Can you imagine applying for a job and the human resource manager says, well, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Or you're applying to colleges, and are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Well, you can't come in if you're a Republican. You can't get the job if you're a Republican. It's the same. You can't come into this restaurant if you're a Republican. And so I really think, political ideology and affiliation should be this protected class. But when you look at what society is coming down to, and you're polarizing yourself, you are starting to see this schism in the United States. And I wouldn't say you're starting to see it. It's here now. And you have industries that are coming up as conservative industries in order to have razors and marketplaces that
to offer an alternative.
An alternative. And so, some of that's important. But the reason that they had to do that, they had to start those up, is because there was just, violations of moral and ethical and religious beliefs of conservatives. And so they kind of had to do this. But still, if you go and you buy razors, or you go to conservative marketplaces, they don't ask if you're a Democrat and say you can't shop there. I mean, they don't discriminate. So why should a restaurant be able to discriminate? And especially, just this day and age of posting online at your every thought and things like that, and just to identify yourself and identify your restaurant.
If it remotely affects your job, don't put it online, people. Come on. But, this is just indicative of, a whole generation of people when the parents mow down every problem in life for them, starting from the time they're babies. By the time they get to be an adult, they can't handle anything that doesn't toe their line or anything that doesn't make them go yay. But, the parents, instead of mowing down all their problems in life, should have taught them the golden rule. How do you want to be treated? Treat those how you want to be treated. Do you want to be thrown out of a restaurant because you voted Democrat? I think not.
Right. Well, we saw this article. We saw how ridiculous it was. But, it's passed as prologue. And to have, Maxine Waters call for, all of these protests and you're in a restaurant and to go surround them and cause them grief and harm and things and ruin their evening. We have the servers and the bartenders saying they're going to do the same thing. And, it's really sad. And we saw this and, again, passed as prologue. And so it looks like it's going to start all over again. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in. Does the devil need you to lie about him to make him seem bad? No, he can do bad all by himself. So if your enemy is so bad, why do you need to make something up? Shouldn't it already exist? Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Kimberly McNabb, and with me is Barrett McNabb.
Thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, so the U.S. Military Academy at West Point is apologizing after an employee said that Pete Hegseth was not accepted nor applied to the prestigious academy. And, an officer came out and said, look, our employee made a mistake. And
big mistake.
Exactly. Mistake, and he forgot to put air quotes in this because it is not to be the registrar's office, who has applied and who has not applied. And so, could it be that President-elect Donald Trump nominating Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense had anything to do with it, and clearly, this, he wants to make a lot of changes in the Pentagon and all of the Department of Defense. Do you think this was a deliberate thing to make him look bad?
Well, it could be, but it just makes me think, if they lie about this, what else are they lying about? I mean, if they had to lie about something so stupid to make him look bad, is he really that bad?
Yeah, I mean, so really what this is ProPublica was doing this story, and they're just trying to generate bad press. So they asked if Pete Hegseth had applied to West Point, and they talked to the registrar's office, and the person said no. Not only was he never accepted, he never applied, and so they said, well, we're going to go ahead and we'll ask again. We'll do due diligence and ask twice. And again, same answer. Nope, it never was. So they do what a lot of the media does. They've pre-written the story. They call you an hour, the subject of the story. They call them an hour before publication and said, look, we have this story. We're going to run it. Would you like to give a comment? And if you don't give a comment, then they just change a little bit of the story to say, when asked for a comment, the person declined to comment or had no comment or whatever it is. Well, Pete Hegseth, he went ahead and did a boss move, and he went ahead and, prior to the story coming out, published on X his letter of acceptance into West Point. Right. And so that forced, the United States Military Academy at West Point to the PR team to come out and say, oh, we actually looked a third time, and turns out he was accepted. And what it was, he applied in 1999, and he was accepted into the class of 2003. And so, he has the letter. It says, "Thank you so much for applying, and you're proudly accepted." Now, he wound up, I guess, not wanting to wait to go to college that long, so he went to Princeton. But still, he did ROTC and did commission as an officer. But still, this just seems very fishy that because people are wanting to prepare for a potential Pete Hegseth Secretary of Defense job, that they're just setting up roadblocks.
Well, I think ProPublica should thank Hegseth for saving them real embarrassment. Oh, wait, they don't recognize that sentiment because that would be like admitting you've done something wrong, which the left never does.
Yeah, well, I mean, this really is it's kind of like and we're publishing or we're putting the Pete Hegseth acceptance letter up, but I'm going to put another document up, and this is the document that Dan Rather used to try and smear George W. Bush when he was running for president. And it was a fitness report in the Air National Guard for George Bush back when he was, a pilot. And this is before his politics days. And the problem was there's a number of them. And so Dan Rather was just saying, hey, look at this document. He was a poor officer. This proves that he was a poor officer. And there was a couple of things, again, wrong with the document. One was it wasn't signed by anybody. There's no signatures on there whatsoever. And then the other problem is that the type that was in the font that was on the document was impossible to do in the 1960s and 70s. So, I mean, they had things like the 187th with the TH in a superscript. Everything was done by typewriter at that time. Computers did not exist that would be able to do a subscript.
Should we show a picture of a typewriter for the kids in the audience?
Yeah, this is what a typewriter looks like, and you can see that there's no ability to change your cases and do all these creative fonts and things like that. So, but still, even when all of that was pointed, look, it's not signed, and you've got typing here that's impossible for a typewriter to do. It can only be done on a computer in Microsoft Word. Nope. Dan Rather doubled down. Anyway, he got fired. And he just got, with him falling on his sword for this document, he got absolutely fired. But this is, again, the left that is trying to create a narrative that does not exist in order to make a conservative look bad.
Yeah, well, I say they got lucky because not every story, gives you enough time to ask over and over and over 3 times about the veracity of a story. You don't get that much time.
I mean, that's a good point. Would it have been? I'll comment below. I'm going to ask Kimberly, but I also want to ask you: should Pete Hegseth have waited for the story to come out and then sued for defamation? Or was he right to preempt the story and to publish his acceptance letter?
Well, personally, I think I really hate any sort of redactions or apologies later because, they'll put the main story on page 1 or something like that. And then they'll put the apology, if we're talking like old school newspapers, like N21 or something, in like 5 font down at the bottom so they can say that they technically apologized. And who's going to follow up with that? I mean, most people, you read just the title, which is, the same equivalency of reading just the front cover of a newspaper back in the day. They're not going to put the apology in the headline. It's going to be way down at the bottom.
Right. It's going to be with the obituaries.
And everyone's going to walk around thinking, oh, yeah, they said this about Pete Hegseth, 2 weeks ago, and that's what I have in my brain now.
Yeah. It seems to me that he is gaining ground. Any Republican senators that were hesitant are coming on board. I know that there's a number of senators, like Senator Fetterman from Pennsylvania, is looking at wanting to give him a chance and hear him out and stuff like that. So this just it goes to the methinks thou that he doth protest too much. When you have registrars in the United States Military Academy at West Point lying about somebody getting accepted into that prestigious institution, and honestly,
It's just a stupid thing to lie about.
it's a stupid thing to lie about. They say mistake. I don't believe it was a mistake. I believe this was a deliberate sabotage, and really, as he becomes Secretary of Defense, and then we have a Secretary of the Army, that needs to be looked into. I mean, it needs to be looked into to see, what this person knew, what they didn't know, how they did their searching, and whether or not there needs to be negative consequences for this civilian that deliberately lied in order to harm the nomination of Pete Hegseth. But let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think that this is fair? Do you think that it's all things are fair in love and war, and this is war? Tell me what you think. I mean, I really want to know because some of the picks that President-elect Trump have done, are polarizing, and that people have opinions on both sides. But still, I mean, with Pete Hegseth wanting to increase the lethality inside the Department of Defense, and articles that I've read that senior long-term career officials that are not in the military but DoD civilians that are long-term civil servants they're already instituting various roadblocks, and there's general officers that are talking about setting up roadblocks and resisting, changes. And, I just see that as violating their oath to the Constitution. And, it's horrible. But we saw this and we wanted to bring it to you because I don't see a lot of podcasters talking about this one. And so I wanted to make sure that we were able to get this to you as soon as possible. So thank you for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.